we've all been thinking about how annoying you
Yes.
are, and
No, yeah,
I'm the
yeah.
one who has to tell you about it. A quick note before we get into the episode. Oversharing is a podcast for entertainment purposes only. It is not a medical podcast and does not constitute medical or psychological advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or mental health professional. Hello and welcome back to Oversharing. I'm Jordana Abraham.
And I am Dr. Naomi Bernstein.
Welcome back. I finally tried the 8D audio.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I did like one song. They have Taylor Swift on there. So I did You Need to Calm Down, which I thought was apt for the
Right. Right.
I couldn't decide if it felt really cool, like I did think it did, but or if I just liked the song. So I might try it
Right.
with like a non-familiar song or they have non-music on there, you said,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, like just, ethereal tones or they do have ones that are just like back and forth pinging.
Okay.
That's a little bit more intense. Like that's if you're trying to basically do like EMDR
Okay.
on yourself kind of thing. And that does can make people a little bit more anxious, but it's almost like with a purpose of reducing longer term anxiety in the moment, it can feel a little bit more anxiety provoking. So for you, I think I would recommend try something that's just like, like spa
Okay.
music, like that kind of thing.
And then I had a couple questions. One, you need to listen with headphones, right?
Ideally, I think
Yes.
your cell phone will kind of bounce back and forth, but it's not going to be the same
Right.
as headphones. Yeah.
So that was a question. And then do you need to not be doing anything? Can you be taking a walk? Can you be like doing household chores? Like what's the
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends what you're looking for, right? I think there is like a more intense protocol where you're drawing to mind something anxiety provoking. Again, this started as like a treatment for PTSD, EMDR. You can do it as like, I'm going to think of something anxiety provoking. I wouldn't recommend doing EMDR on yourself around big trauma. So I'll put that out there. This is more like, I have a sticky thought. I'd like to not think about this thing anymore. I'm going to draw to mind this thought. And as I draw to mind this thought, I'm going to listen to this bilateral stimulation. Or some people just like the way it feels. Like,
got
and
it. Yeah. I didn't do the thing where I bring the anxious thought to mind. So maybe
right.
that's also another part of it. I didn't try to do that.
Yeah, so you can I wouldn't do that necessarily with Taylor Swift. I guess it could, but I think I would do that more with like the tones and the just the kind of like ethereal type music. But some people, so there's two ways that you can use this. One is like I have this sticky thought. I want to like let go a little bit of this.
Mhm.
And another one is like some people just really like it. Like it just feels like the brain flossing, like a relaxing kind of like clearing out the
Right.
tubes being like the neural pathways in your brain kind of thing.
Where you don't have to think of a traumatic thought. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good to know.
And again, I will
Yeah.
say I would not recommend that people
Not serious trauma.
not
Just like
yeah, try to process
like
serious trauma on their own. I would
you
do
would
that
do
with
it
a professional EMDR
right.
therapist.
It sounds like you would do that for a situation like the Shed Your Shame one, which we're just about to
Yes.
read. That seems like
Yes.
the perfect kind of situation to do the 8D audio thing. But I'm gonna try it. I'm taking a plane on Wednesday. I always find planes are like the perfect place to try out this kind of thing, especially
Yes.
like if you don't have Wi-Fi, because you're
Totally.
like, might as well have nothing better to
Sitting
do.
here,
Yes.
meditation on a plane is great because you're sitting upright. You have your time to yourself. You have not much else to do. I love it. I think
I
that's
agree.
a great idea. Yeah, and we have some stuff around fear of flying as well coming up, so that might be helpful for that too.
Yeah, great episode for that. And we have I mean, we didn't get a ton of submissions for Shedding Your Shame, I'll be honest. Didn't see a ton. People liked the concept, but I haven't seen that many people submit theirs, but we did get one and I wanted to share cuz I thought it was pretty good.
Yes, I loved it. It's like the perfect thing where it's like literally nothing happened. You're good, everyone's good, but you feel this like huge shame around this thing.
Twinge of embarrassment like
Yeah,
whenever you think of it. for
Yes,
sure.
and
Yeah.
sticky, and those thoughts get really sticky, like, just keep kinda popping up in your mind.
And I get why people don't wanna submit them because it does feel like I just kinda wanna a lot of them are, like, not so big that you're kinda just like, "Let me just pretend it didn't happen."
Yes.
And I kind of you know what I mean? I feel that way about I'm like, "Why am I gonna, like, write why would I write in about something or why would I, like, keep" like, I'm trying to, like, forget that this happened by just suppressing it instead of,
Right.
you know?
Yes, it almost feels like I'm, like, bringing it back up again when I wanna let it go,
Right.
but if it's coming up anyway,
Yeah. Tell
just
us
tell
and
us.
normalize it for everyone else.
I can't wait to normalize this for this person.
Alright, let's read it.
Alright, go
Okay.
for it.
Alright. My shame story from last week. I was dropping my son off at daycare when I realized the door code had been changed and my phone was still in the car. It had snowed the day before, and the parking lot was a sheet of ice, and I was parked in one of the further spots. I decided to leave him at the door, which is behind a gate, rather than try to get him back to the car and then back to the door again. He'd slipped 3 times getting to the door the first time. It took me maybe 45 seconds to get there and back. He had his coat on too. As I walked back up to the door, I overheard a grandmother say, "Wow, did your mom just leave you here?" And I said, "I know, I just needed to get the door code and I didn't want him to slip on the ice." And she gave me a pretty judgy look. I felt bad, but I also felt like he was safer at the door rather than on the ice. Ice mom.
Yeah, I could see the guilt because she got it from someone else, like, I think if no one had noticed and no one had seen, she wouldn't be thinking about this at all.
Mhm.
It would have been fine, she would have gotten back, it was f
Right.
she was close enough to hear her say it, which is also kind of annoying.
Right. And I don't think this is that shameful. Like I feel like I mean, I'm not a parent, but I would imagine a lot of parenting is like making these kinds of decisions all the time where it's like,
Yes.
what's the bigger risk? What's the thing that's going to get me through this moment? Like kind of mitigating risk and assessing constantly, I
A
would
hundred,
imagine.
100%. I remember the first time when I, like, ordered smoothies to go, like, they're ordered, they're ready to pick up, I just had to, like, run into the place and, like, get them and bring them into the car, and I was leaving, like, one of the kids in the car, and I'm, like, going through the scenarios of, like, what could happen? Could they,
Right.
like, unbuckle themselves and, like, lock the door, and then I won't be able to, like, where are the keys and the are they and, it's just like you're going through a million scenarios, and it's like, most of the time, it's totally fine. They're, like, secured, and even if this kid was behind a gate and it was 45 seconds but, yeah, there's all these tons of them, like, even Jeff and I have been experimenting with leaving Lila and Maddie, the 2 older girls, to babysit while we go out for dinner.
Ooh.
A
Yeah. I mean,
whole new world.
Lila's gonna be 13,
Yeah, she's
right?
about to
Yeah.
be 13. Maddie's 11. Um, there's 2 of them. So we've been experimenting with that, but I'm like, I'm sure if somebody came in and said like, "How
Right.
could you?" or like,
Well, if something bad happened, then, like, it's oh, and because also the other thing is, like, you never like, she walks us through her whole mental, like, calculation, right?
yes.
But when you see someone else do it, you don't get that. So you just kind of assume that whatever the worst thing that they could be thinking is, which is like, for you, I wanna go out to eat more than I care about my daughter's safety. Like, they assume that was the calculation in
Right.
your mind,
Right.
right?
Yes.
But that's not the case, or for here, the woman's like, "Oh, they just, like she couldn't even be bothered with you. So
Right.
she left you at the door." Like, you just get the worst. And sometimes I think, like, to give, some grace to those people, like, sometimes you do have that thought when you see a kid who sometimes you see a mom and a kid who's screaming or the parent who's, like, yelling at them in a way where you're like, "That seems like a little extreme."
Right.
And I think if you can think it, there's no, like, thought police. Like, I don't think you could police people's thought. I think it's okay to, like, judge someone in your head, but to say it out loud is, like, an entirely different scenario.
Yes. Or the kindest thing, and I think about this a lot because I've been a mom for a lot of years. Like, if I saw a kid that, like, and I've been there, like, we go to these big packed gyms with all these people, and sometimes I'll see like a little toddler kind of like walking around, and you don't realize that if the parents there or not, like, I'll just kind of help out. Like, I'll just see the kid and I'll stand with the kid for a little bit without making a judgy comment about it,
Right.
and see if I can, like, look around and find the mom, and, like, I'll help keep an eye on the kid for a second while I'm trying to figure out whose kid it is without having to make that comment that's gonna make her feel bad, like, just kinda jump in. If you're really concerned and you're the grandma and you're standing there without a kid, just stand there for a minute and, like, be like, "Oh, okay,
Wait with
maybe
him,
there's a
yeah.
mom that needs a little help for a second."
Right, and I think you know what? It actually I feel like because it's a grandma and maybe not a mom, there's maybe she doesn't do this all the time, so there's
Yes,
less of a feeling of, like, knowing what that constant calculation is. Like,
totally.
I would imagine you're more judgy of something that you're not currently in and doing constantly than this is your one day to drop the kid off and you're like, "Whoa, well, like, this seems who would do this?"
Right. Yeah, and I think when you're in that mindset of, like, looking at someone else and like you said, you'll have that thought where you look at someone else and you're like, "Whoa." Like, think maybe have that thought of, like, "This isn't good," or "They're not a good mom," and I think it's helpful in that moment, and this is for me or for you or for anyone who sees that, you notice that you have that thought, and then you're kinda like, "They're struggling right now." Like, this might just be, like, a state situation rather than a trait situation. Like,
Right.
there's
Well,
like a
situational bias. I remember
yes,
that from AP Psych.
yes.
Yes.
There's like a where you're like, "Is this who this mother is, or is she just having a hard time in this moment?" Or father, whoever it is, like, I really think it's a kindness, and I've done that when I see moms that are like their kids are just acting wild and crazy and tantruming, and I know the fear is people are judging me. They think I have no control over my kid, or,
Mhm.
if you have to, like, grab them by the arm and, like, drag them out of some place, like, I know everyone's so fearing that judgment that, like, sometimes I'll just go up and be like, "You got this. Like, you're good. Like, you're doing a
Right.
good job." Like, you know,
Oh, that's
something
nice.
that's just like, I see you, but, like, of course, everyone sees you. Like, let's be
Right.
honest, right? We all see what's happening here, but I'm not thinking bad thoughts about you. So, like, I think if we can all put that energy out into the world a little bit,
Yeah.
um
I'm telling you, it's the priest study. Like, the priests help the people who fell down when they are not in a rush.
right. Right. If you
So,
have a couple
yeah.
extra minutes, you have a little extra gas in your tank, be the grandma, whoever that was, that's just like, "You know what? I'm gonna stand here with this kid for a second and just, like, non-judgmentally see if there's a mom somewhere or dad somewhere that needs some help."
Right.
So I hope you can let go of this because I probably would have done the same thing. I think a lot of people would, especially if he's, like, behind a gate. I mean, what's gonna happen?
Yeah. This doesn't feel like that. I wouldn't beat yourself up over this one.
Shed your shame. We
Yeah.
shed it for you.
Exactly, we did it. And if you have any more if you wanna shed your shame, email us oversharing@betches.com, or you can give us a voicemail, 646-363-6294. If you guys have not subscribed yet and you want these episodes ad-free and a day early, you can subscribe on subscribe.betches.com, or right on your Apple feed if you listen there. And you get also 2 bonus episodes a month. One of the episodes we respond to listener feedback, which and usually it's negative listener feedback. It's your
I'm
someone writing in
I'm
something
excited
mean.
to
Yeah.
respond to some of this, the feedback on the episode with the woman
Vaccination.
with the vaccination and her
Yes.
friend, and whether or not you should or shouldn't drop a friend on something like that. I'm glad people are engaged. I'm glad you're listening. We're hearing you, and if you come listen to some of the subscription episodes, we will touch on that for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into that one too. And we also do we'll speak to a listener either going through something or who's already been on to give us an update. So these are a lot of fun. And we get into it. And if you want to subscribe, you should definitely subscribe. Or if you want to join one of Dr. Naomi's therapy groups, it's another way to get involved with the show.
Awesome. Yeah, come check it out, naomibernstein.com, and I hope to hear from you.
Let's do an overshare. Do you want to read the overshare?
I will read this. Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. Love everything you do. I'm conflict avoidant and need help confronting my best friend without crushing her spirit. My best friend is an incredibly high energy person and I love her deeply, but she dominates conversations to the point where it's exhausting. At a group gathering last night, she spoke 90% of the time, barely letting others contribute unless she asked them direct questions. Her voice is also extremely loud. I even joked a couple of times that she was hurting my ears. I could sense our mutual friends felt drained, but we all want to accept her for who she is. Lately, I've started to feel resentment about this, but I don't know how to address it with love and compassion, especially because she's very sensitive. Should I bring it up in a private, heartfelt conversation? Or should I try to gently redirect in the moment, saying something like, "Hey, wait, I want to hear what Jenny has to say." The problem is, I have a quieter personality and it's hard for me to speak up. I don't want to hurt her, but I also feel like it's unfair to silently resent her dominant behavior. After her mom, I'm the number one person she calls, and she hasn't had much luck with romantic partners, so I feel a responsibility to love and support her unconditionally. But at what point can I be honest? One additional piece of context. She was recently diagnosed with ADHD, and I actually helped fill out an evaluation form about her behavior, where I rated her the highest possible score on, quote, observing her annoying others. And she saw it. I felt weird about it, but I reassured her it was my honest assessment and that I still love her. I also have ADHD, but the inattentive type, so I empathize with the complexities that come with being neurodivergent. How do I navigate this conversation in a way that strengthens rather than strains our friendship? Signed, socially exhausted Batch.
Okay. Um, this is a good one because I think our tendency is to just kind of like not bring up annoying things that people do and then either talk shit about it with others
Yes.
or just be like silently irritated because it just feels like it's just easier not to, especially in the moment.
Yes. I think her instinct, and I've literally done this, I think, before. And as a therapist and a group therapist, I sometimes have to do this. Um, I think her instinct to be like, hang on one second. I just want to hear what Jenny has to say about that. Or Jenny, what do you think about that? Or like, I think that that might be a good first, like, shot out of the box just to try to
Mhm.
see if she can subtly she might, especially if she is, if this is like a ADHD diagnosis and it's like a brain wiring thing, she might just be the type of person that needs that reminder every now and then. And that might be like a non-shameful, just like gentle reminder of let somebody else in. So maybe
Yeah,
doing that first, and if that doesn't work, and she says she's conflict avoidant, so I could see why she's not the type that's going to be like jumping in and
right.
directing the conversation.
I would almost be more annoyed, I think, by that. By,
If you
like,
were
someone's sa if I were the friend, I feel like I would feel like she was, like, kinda scolding me, like, almo 'cause that sounds like something you'd almost say to I hear my friends say that to their kids all the time, like,
right.
"Mommy's talking," like, "We don't just talk, we don't just interrupt people when they're in the middle of a conversation,"
Right.
or something, like, it does feel a little bit, like, chastising,
Yeah, I
but
think
it
there's
sounds
a
like
way
she
you
does
could do
or
it where you're kinda like, "Oh, Jenny, what do you think?" Or, like, that kind of thing where you're just,
Right.
like, you're
Yeah,
jumping in and asking someone else a question to
right.
take
Yeah,
it
there's a way to
away.
subtly do it. I agree, by if you don't address her and you're just like, "So what do you think?" Whatever,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. I do think the heartfelt private conversation, if you're truly, like, best friends, and your friend is someone who's, like, emotionally mature, is a good way to do it. I actually recently did this with a friend and it went really well.
Oh, wow,
Um,
okay.
and it wasn't about my interaction with her, but it was about an interaction that I saw her doing with someone else. And I had seen it for a while and I didn't really wanna say anything because I was like first I'm like, I don't know if it's my place because there is a sense and I so that's why I totally related to the listener where you're like, who am I to tell someone that the way they're interacting with someone is not correct?
Right.
Like,
Right.
if they haven't asked me.
Right, especially if it's like
Right.
everyone thinks you're really annoying, like, that's the worst. Yeah.
Totally. And I think that, like, that's why I didn't say anything for a long time. And then, I don't know, I kind of felt like I saw an interaction and then I was, like, in a private talk with her and I was like, "Do you mind if I" we were on the topic of this other person. And I said, "Would you be open if I told you about something that I noticed about
Beautiful.
you?"
Of course she's
And
gonna
right.
say
I
yes.
could tell in her eyes and her facial expression that she immediately thought it was gonna be something horrible, like, she was, like, nervous, like, what are you about to tell me?" Like
Yeah.
like, 'cause it does feel, like,
Yes.
embarrassing, but then I told her the thing, and she was like, I could totally see that. I don't even I when I was doing that, I wasn't even thinking, but, like, that's a
Yes.
good point, I'm gonna try not to do that anymore."
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a and now you've built a trust with her that you can have, like, a difficult conversation with her, which comes back to so much what like, even friendship breakups happen because you can't have those conversations, so you just really strengthened your friendship with her because now I know this seems like it was a small thing, but
Right.
now you have a trust that, like, if I do have a problem, like, you're not gonna get defensive and get mad and storm out and
Right, and I think if I said it while she was doing it to the other person, I think that would be really embarrassing and really, like, I don't think that it would have gone the same way.
right. Yes, I totally agree. I think it would if she's gonna do it in the moment, it would just have to be like a subtle redirecting
Right,
versus like maybe the first way I phrased it was like, hang on a second. Like I wouldn't even do the hang on a second, just kind of like, oh, what did you think about that movie or whatever? Another idea that I have is given that she filled out the ADHD evaluation and she knows that that question was on there, she could kind of be like, I just wanted to talk to you about that evaluation. I
right.
know that I put this thing in there and I was concerned that maybe it would hurt your feelings. I wanted to kind of just explain my thought process around that. So that might be like a little opener to
Yeah,
bring up the topic.
because she probably noticed it,
Yeah.
and, like, I would
Yeah.
do certainly notice if my friend checked annoys others, gave me a 5 out of 5 on that.
Right.
That would be something
Right.
I'd wanna discuss with them maybe.
And the fact that she saw it and it hasn't she hasn't noticed it affecting their friendship means like maybe she is a little bit self-aware about that in some
Right.
way where she wasn't like completely offended
I
that
mean,
you
she's
did that.
taking the ADHD questionnaire, so clearly she thinks she has something to work on anyway, so,
Yes.
like, I agree. It definitely strengthens the friendship. It's not something people are able to do, I think, when they're emotionally immature, or, like, I don't think my younger self would've been able to do that, but I do think that I agree, it brings you closer, and I think you would wanna know if someone was secretly annoyed by your behavior.
I agree, and I think she should do it, is if it's especially if it's building resentment. I mean, the other option is if she gets there and she brings it up, because I do think if this is just like a personality thing or like part of her neurodivergence, she might not be able to help it. But I
Right.
think even if she brings it up or addresses it in some way and it doesn't change, it might be a little bit easier to just kind of be like, okay, these are the settings in which I find her kind of annoying, and so maybe I'll lean into these other settings versus maybe like big group dinners is not where I most enjoy her.
Company,
Um,
yeah.
and just like accepting her for who she is, but creating some limits on like, because you don't want to continue building resentment to the point where you don't want to be around her at all.
Agreed. I would also keep it to, like, this is what I noticed, not this is what everyone thinks.
Yes,
Because 1, you can't
100%.
speak for everyone, and 2, that's much harder pill to swallow, is like, "We've all been thinking about how annoying you
Yes.
are, and
No, yeah,
I'm the
yeah.
one who has to tell you about it."
These conversations are hard, but I do think I'm glad that you're giving that real life example of a conversation that might have been hard that went well and brought you closer.
What do you think about asking if you can give them feedback? Is that
I like
I
that.
wasn't sure if that was, like, too scary of an intro almost, or
No, I like that. I think some people might be self-aware enough to be like, "Actually, like, I, like, can't today."
Right, I'm not in the state to, like,
I'm
be
not
getting
yes.
negative
Some people
feedback, yeah.
might. I think most people are gonna be so curious about what you have to say that they're gonna say yes, even if they're not really in a place to
Right.
take it, but I do think it's nice to ask because otherwise it's completely unsolicited advice, which is, can be I could see us getting a triggered scenario with someone who's like, "Oh, Jordana, my friend, just
Yeah.
told me she didn't like the way I handled this situation that had absolutely nothing to do with her. That was really
Right.
annoying."
I think that's the only way that it wouldn't go well is if the person just disagrees also with your take,
Yeah.
which is possible. Like, she might be like, "I don't think that I do that. Or I don't believe that I do that,"
Yeah. Yeah.
which, that's a
Yes,
different
and then that's
conversation.
a whole different now you have to decide whether you're gonna accept her, whether you're gonna change the scenarios in which you hang out with her. So, give us the follow-up on this if you do bring it up and it doesn't go well. We'll help you figure out what your next move is.
Right. Let's get into, our next email. Our Betchicist. Do you wanna read this one?
Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. You've discussed a few different ethical dilemmas surrounding concert tickets, and I have a new one that I'm interested to hear your take on. You may have heard that Paul McCartney did several intimate pop up shows in the city this past week. He was announcing them last minute and required individuals to wait on a line down a city street in order to get a ticket. There was only one ticket allotted per customer and no resale allowed. Many people went as far as to camp out overnight. My husband waited in line one of the days and noticed several, quote, line guys waiting in line for other people. It turns out this is a business in New York City. You can actually pay people to wait in line for you. Who knew? He said others waiting in line were very upset by the fact that there were these line guys. But my husband thinks that if they're taking the place for someone else, the person standing behind them wouldn't be any closer anyway. However, if someone was unable to be there in person, then the line would be shorter. In my opinion, it feels a bit unfair that people are able to still use their wealth to acquire a ticket and cheat the system. I would love to know your thoughts.
This is an interesting one.
Interesting one. Yeah, I've heard of the line guys. Like I always heard of it like at the passport office. Like people will hire someone to like wait in line
Line, yeah.
for like a next day passport and then call them when they're like at the front of the line type thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I've heard of this for, like, concert tickets or, like, they used to have those cronut crazes. I think that was, like, where they have the big line to
Cronut?
this was, like, in 10 years ago. There was, like, a weird dessert situation where there was this, like it was a donut croissant hybrid, and you had to wait in line to, like, get one. They were, like, the hottest thing in New York. It's crazy.
And people were hiring people to wait for the cronuts, or you don't know? Or
I
you
think
it's
so. I feel like that was a thing.
that's
'Cause it was like a
nuts.
long line to wait for,
Right.
like, the special
Right.
dessert
Yeah,
or the
that's the
Paul McCartney
thing.
concert.
That's the thing.
And part of me is like, "Yeah, this sucks," right? That someone, like that you have to wait in line and that this other person's not waiting in line and they're just hiring someone. But also, like, isn't that can't you not use money to solve many issues that other
Right.
people can't
Right.
solve?
Right.
Like, it sucks that some people have to clean their own house or take the bus, like,
Right.
but that's also, like, kind of the capitalist society that we live in,
Yes.
where
Yeah.
you can pay to outsource things that save you time.
Yes. It's true. I think it's just a truth bomb that you cannot take that out of this. And I do appreciate these artists that are kind of like, I want the biggest fans in this room. I want the real diehards that
Right,
get, and that's the issue that we had with the Taylor Swift tickets is like, you want the real, she's trying to get the real fans. Like he's trying to get the real fans and doing what he can. I like the concept. You put it out last minute. Who's willing to like call in sick to work to
right.
come to my concert because I just am announcing it the same day or whatever it is.
But also, like, who wants these tickets badly enough to wait to hire someone to wait on a line? That's also another
Yeah, I think this is definitely a step below what we were hearing before because you can't resell them. So it's not like these people are doing this. They're hiring the line guy, paying the line guy $200 and then reselling the tickets for like an extra $200 and they're making money on it.
right,
They just really want the tickets and they probably have to work or maybe you could look at it and think they have to take care of their sick grandmother and so they're hiring a line guy and that will make you feel a little bit better about it.
right. They don't necessarily even have to be wealthy. They could just be someone who's, like, so intensely into Paul McCartney that they are using up their monthly savings to make sure they get this ticket because they can't make it.
Just having the ability to sit and wait in line at 12 o'clock in the middle of a workday is sort of a privileged thing as well. Um, if you're like an employee working for a company and you just call in, you might be afraid of losing your job. And like even the ability to be able to stand there, like you're able bodied enough to stand outside in the cold for
Right.
7 hours and maybe someone else is not. And that's privilege, right?
Exactly. Like there's always someone who's more privileged than you and always someone who's less privileged than you. I think if anyone has used a fast pass at
Yes.
a theme park, I don't know that
Yes.
they can I mean, that is like, I guess, an institutionalized way to use your wealth too. And maybe
Yes.
people feel more comfortable with that because it's like so clear, but that is like a very
Totally.
much more blatant version of this. Like
Yes.
you pay Six Flags, you cut
Yeah.
the line. You pay Disney World, you cut the line.
Yeah, you don't even have to employ somebody while you're doing it. You're
Right.
just you're not even helping the workforce here. Yeah, I I get it. I appreciate the, dilemma, but I think we're on the same page that it's not the worst thing in the world, and I think Paul McCartney's still gonna get what he wanted, which is he's gonna get some good diehard fans in that room, whether you're hiring a line guy or not, but I
Right.
get it. I get why it's tweaking her a little bit.
Yeah. The world is not super fair.
Nope. All the things. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many examples of this where you could just throw money at a problem and,
Right.
make
I
your
guess
life
because
easier.
you know what the thing is? This one's so visible. There's so many other ways that wealthy people use their money to get things that other people can't, or get privileges, or get, um, like access to things. But usually you can't really see them. But when you see a line guy, you're like,
And you're
this is
standing
annoying.
behind him for like
Yeah.
7 hours. It's like just playing that tape in your head of like, "Oh my gosh, whoever this person is not standing here and instead this person is."
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and most things you either, like you said, get a glimpse into or you don't really see
you
them
don't
because 'cause they're
see it.
behind the scenes.
Yep.
But this I could see being I validate being annoyed by it, but I also don't think it's unfair. Let's do some intentions.
All right.
I'll read this one. Hi, Jordana and Dr. Naomi. Thank you both for all of your thoughtful advice week after week. I'm writing in seeking an intention for some flight anxiety that I've been experiencing. I have an upcoming trip that I'm very excited about, but the recent plane crashes that have been all over the news are making me very anxious to fly. I have flown many times before with no issues, but I can't help but feel like there have been more crashes than normal lately, and I'm pretty nervous. Do you have any guidance and an intention to help me through this next flight? Hoping this can help other listeners as well, as I know I can't be the only one. Lots of love to you both, and thank you for reading. I liked this question.
Mhm.
I'm about to fly on Wednesday, and I have to say I'm not usually like an anxious flyer, anxious about things beyond my control, but there have been a lot of headlines lately, and even I am getting like a little bit of a feeling of like
Yeah.
a slight small anxiety. So I can't even imagine how someone who actually has a pre-existing fear of flying would
Yes.
feel right now. It does feel a little bit anxiety provoking for me too.
Yeah, totally. I do think this is super relatable. Like, I'm one of the ones that's, like, asleep before the plane even takes off, and I could see that this is bubbles up for people around this because it's I think a lot of it has to do with the visuals,
Yeah.
like, you're really seeing the actual, footage of so it's like that part of your brain, that, like, trauma fear center is being infused with visuals and even like the auditory stimulation if you're listening to what's going on in the videos. That's what I think brings this to into your nervous system a lot for people when they're flying. So, and just headlines and talking about it and keep bringing it up. So totally get it.
Our brains are wired, right, to create this like pattern conclusion mindset. If you see like a few of these things, even if they're small, you're kind of like, whoa, like there's a high correlation now with people who fly and people who
Yes.
get into plane crashes.
Yes. Yes. And then your next thought is like, well, what can I do? Right. And when
Hmm.
your what can you do is either not fly, which I don't think most people want to give into, or you can worry about it. and ruminate on it, and that feels like you're doing something about it when there's nothing really that you can do. So, I'm glad that you came here, and I think one of the things that we do with fears is, like, when your mental dialogue starts to go down that path of, like, creating a really fearful narrative is, like, providing evidence against it. So, despite these 2 big plane crashes that we've seen recently, flying is still, like, literally one of the safest ways that you it's definitely safer than driving, and it's a safe mode of transportation in terms of, like, your a chance of any particular flight resulting in fatality. It's really, really small.
And I saw something also that even though there's been, like, slightly statistically, like, there's been slightly more, like, things that have had issues, the actual fatality rate of flying is actually down.
Yes. So it's playing a trick on our brains, like you
Mhm.
said. It's like playing this trick on your brain because you're having this, like, semi real life experience where you're watching the visuals of this and you're getting reminded of it when it really is like the trend is still going down, that flying is safer and safer and safer. And if it makes you feel any better, when things like this happen, it even makes it safer because now everyone's like extra hyper vigilant when they're going to work. The people that are behind the scenes of this are probably even more worried than you are because it's kind of their responsibility to keep everyone safe. Um, so I get that this is hard. And as far as an intention, chances are really low if you can keep that in the back of your mind. Like, flying is safe. And relative to all the other things that we could be worrying about, heart disease and cancer, and I'm not trying to scare you, but like there's lots of other things that are more likely to happen to you
Much more statistically likely, yeah.
than this. So if you can create the conclusion that flying is safe, because I think in the grand scheme of things it is compared to other things that we're doing during the day, just kind of keeping that top of mind that flying is safe. And I think another thing that's helpful when you're on the plane or even leading up to the plane is, like, she said she has a trip she's looking forward to. So almost like exchanging the visual of whatever is filling her head, like these plane crashes, especially that one that, like, flipped over, that I mean, both of them are horrific. One, there were a bunch of fatalities, but even the one where there were no fatalities, but the plane flipped over, it's, like, so scary
Yeah, terrifying.
to see the images of that. So, replacing the images of that of, like, what it is that you're looking forward to on this trip, like,
Your
when you
8D audio on the
yes,
plane.
yes, 8D audio, and then combining that with, like, a closing your eyes and visualizing wherever strolling down the streets of whatever city you're flying to, or if you're going somewhere warmer, like the sun on your skin, and just, visualizing that. And then the intention that I wrote is, flying is safe. I am safe. With each deep breath, I'm moving towards a life of wonder and adventure. Because the alternative is you don't fly,
I don't go anywhere, yeah.
or you're so paralyzed by this, or like, you know, the whole time you're just like sitting there, like gritting your teeth, getting through it. So I think if you can look at it like relaxing into this discomfort, it's kind of like a training for your life, because there's going to be other times when you're going to feel like this, and you're like, okay, I'm in it. I'm on the plane, and expecting turbulence, I think, is also a good thing to do, instead of being like, what if there's turbulence? Like, there's going to be turbulence
Right,
and you're going to be fine. So that way, when the turbulence happens, you're not like, here it is. I knew it. Like,
right.
kind of expecting that there's gonna be some shaky air on the plane, and it's gonna that rattling sound, there's gonna be some funky sounds, right? We all have that experience where the plane makes that weird, like, squealing sound, or, planes make weird sounds all the time. So, like, expecting there's gonna be weird sounds, there's gonna be turbulence. We don't know, most people don't know how planes even work, so I think that creates a lot of fear of flying, like, what
Right.
is even happening right now? I have no clue. And if something went wrong, like,
That's what I like about flying, personally. I like that I have no control over anything, like, there's I get much more scared skiing where I'm like, If I ski into a tree, that's because I
It's all your fault.
screwed something up and
Yeah,
I did this thing that I didn't know how to do correctly. Like,
right.
with planes, you're in there, like, you got nothing to do but relax. Like, there's absolutely nothing you can do to affect how this trip goes.
Yes, and that freaks a lot of people out. I get it. I'm
I
the
like
same.
it. It calms me, but I see other
Yes,
people how that could freak them
yes.
out.
Like, I personally I'm the same way. I'd rather, like, go skydiving than ride a motorcycle on the highway.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, I don't wanna be in control of any, like, fast moving, like, slightly dangerous type activities. So, yeah, I get it, and I'm glad that you brought this up, and I think just kinda, doing visualizing why you're doing it, and that this is, like, building resilience and strength in you as you sit and relax into that discomfort of, whatever your thoughts were ahead of time. I am safe. You are safe when you're flying. You're safe. We just happen to be, and the media coverage around it is huge. If the media wouldn't be covering this, there have been 67 people that have died of heart disease in 1 week, but the media is not reporting on that. So you don't,
Probably more, yeah.
right. So when you hear about a bunch of people dying in one instant, it feels like it's such a bigger deal because it's just more sensational. So just kind of keeping yourself in check that flying is safe. Breathing deeply, visualizing the place where you're going to go and all the enjoyable things that you're going to do when you get there. And that you're heading into an adventurous life with some awe by kind of just relaxing into this discomfort.
Agreed. Good luck. Anyone
Good
who else
luck.
who needs this, you're gonna be fine. All right,
All
let's
right.
move on to our triggered segment. We are not keeping anything bottled up, and neither is Angry Orchard, our sponsor for today's episode. Angry Orchard is here to shake things up by sponsoring our triggered segment, helping you guys get that sweet release. Whether it's a petty annoyance or a full on rage spiral, your feelings deserve to be felt and then let go. Write or call in and tell us what you're triggered about this week, and we'll help you uncap all of the feelings.
I will read our first triggered here. Dear Jordana and Dr. Naomi, I love oversharing and I'm enjoying the new subscriber content. Awesome. I have a low stakes triggered scenario and I'd like to know if you think I'm overreacting. My family moved across the country last month for my husband to start a new job. We have 4 girls under the age of 7.
Wow.
Wow. Way to go.
It's a lot.
Whatever you're
Yep.
doing is enough. And I'm a stay at home mom. It's been a difficult adjustment. We don't know anyone here, and he's working much longer hours than before. He used to get home for dinner every night, but now walks in the door just as the girls are going to bed. Last Monday, my husband said that 2 of his new bosses invited him to grab a drink with them after work on Friday. I said that was great and encouraged him to go. Fast forward to Friday, and I realized that this gathering is happening on Valentine's Day. To be clear, I'm not mad at my husband. He asked, and I said that sounded great. I just find it baffling that someone would invite a married father of 4 to hang out after work on Valentine's Day. We keep it low key every year. He sends flowers, I bake something with the girls, and they make him some cute cards. So it's not like he canceled our plans. Still, I was upset. What does this mean about their corporate culture overall? How triggered can I be? Best, probably trick or treating solo.
Okay.
So I think the sign off says everything that she's worried about.
Answer
Like,
is always in the email.
yeah. It's true. I get it. It is weird and triggering that it's Valentine's Day. They just assumed that it was like a regular day, but I think her fear is because it's a new job that the culture is going to be like he doesn't his family moments like trick or treating are not gonna be held with high importance at his new job. Doesn't sound like she really cares about Valentine's Day, I think it's more about what does this mean and
Right.
what are we getting ourselves into here?
And I think it's tapping in, I mean, as all the triggers do, they tap into the insecurity. And I think for her, the insecurity is like, I feel very alone here. I
Yeah.
don't know anyone in this new city. You are working all the time. Like, that's what's really the issue. It's not really about like these drinks that didn't really get in the way of any plans they had. It's like this feeling of I feel very isolated and alone and like maybe disconnected. Maybe. I mean, she didn't say that, but like it's possible and I can imagine feeling overwhelmed in a new state with 4 young kids and a husband who I don't see all day.
Yeah,
So I could see like I think that part feels I don't know if that's triggering or if that's like the current state that she's in, but I sympathize with that. I don't think them asking if he could get the drink is that triggering. I think he could have said no. But she didn't ask him to. He asked her if it was okay. It wasn't like he just said I'm going. And
right.
he's new there, so he's probably trying to like he probably sees this as a good opportunity to further his career.
Yes. I think this is one where, like, nobody did anything wrong. Like, I don't think the coworkers were wrong for asking. I don't think he was wrong for saying yes, especially if he checked with her. She's playing forward, like, how many of these holidays with the family am I gonna have to do alone? Because it sounds like they do kinda celebrate Valentine's Day more as, like, a family thing, and now she's doing Valentine's Day with the girls alone and anticipating doing, like, Halloween alone, and is she gonna have to do I think there's just this idea of I think it is triggering probably some feelings of just general loneliness, which you touched on, and I think that's yeah, it's a really I admire you for being so supportive. This sounds like a really, really hard situation to be alone with the 4 kids all day until bedtime when he
Right. You don't even have
first
any friends in the city yet,
Yeah.
I'm sure. It's like that's probably she gets no human interaction.
Yeah.
Adult interaction, yeah.
Yeah, this is a lot, and I think so as far as, like, what to do about it, right? Like, she's not getting mad, which is great because what she could do is, like, get really annoyed with him. Now she has all this and conflict with him because he's like, "I'm just trying to do the best I can. I asked you, you said yes, now you're mad."
Although he didn't say it was Valentine's Day, I don't know if he realized, but I do think, like, if he just left that out and was hoping she didn't realize, that would be kind of annoying. I don't know
Yeah,
that he did that,
right.
but
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it was almost like in the midst of it, she realized it was Valentine's Day and was like, "Wait a minute. It's Valentine's Day. This is crazy."
right. I would be annoyed if I felt like I was tricked into, like, saying yes to something that I because I didn't realize, but I don't know if that's the case. I don't wanna
Yeah.
plant that if that's not something she's thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think she can it might be worth her, like, looking ahead at her schedule and figuring out, like, asking him for what she wants, which is like, "I would like, you to try to be home for dinner X amount of times," or like, I don't know, whatever's coming up, like Memorial Day weekend, like, can we try to spend some time together as a family? Or like just kind of getting ahead of it and saying what is important to her, something that she can look forward to, that she knows that they're going to have some good family time, and seeing if if he has enough notice, try to make sure that he doesn't make plans on those particular days where she doesn't just feel like she's just being pulled back and forth at the whim of his job constantly,
Right.
never knowing when she's going to get like a little fuel in her tank by being able to be with him all together as a family.
Yeah, and I think if she explains that this situation is kind of, like, sad or stressful for her, I feel like he'll be a lot more like, if she hasn't said any of those things where, like, "I feel a little overwhelmed, I feel like I'm doing everything alone, and, you know, it makes me sad that, like, I'm I'm anticipating not having these family memories because you're working all the time." Um, I think that, like, he'll be much more likely to, like, find the solution or the next time his boss asked him to do something on a holiday or on a day that, maybe he would just think about because you've already told him about these fears or these anxieties or these insecurities, that he'd probably be more, like, ahead of it.
Yeah. I think this is just a good wake up call that you're feeling lonely and you're maybe needing to just talk to him about that or share that with him that or maybe you need to ask him to on the weekend be with them so you could try to do something and make some friends. So that way you can kind of have when he's gone, maybe do a little Valentine's thing with some other mom and her kids, or if it is really about loneliness, or maybe it just is about you wanting him, in which case that's a different story. But I think this is a good wake up call that like you're wanting something. I don't think it's about Valentine's Day in specific, but either she's afraid of like how it's going to play out going forward, or she's feeling like she needs a little something else to look forward to. And I think you guys can make that happen together if you talk about it.
Yeah. I'd give this like I don't know the husband, but I would give this like a 3.5 because he asked her, but I would want him to know that he didn't know it was Valentine's.
Yeah.
Like, that
Yeah.
would be in the back of my head.
Right. It would have been better if he was like, I know it's Valentine's Day,
Yeah,
but do you mind if I go?
right. I agree with that. I would be, like, a little peeved that I because maybe she wouldn't have said yes.
Right.
Um, so I'll give it a 3.5.
Yeah.
Unless she knows him so well that she knows there's no way he could possibly have done that, but
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that matters if he was trying to like sneak it in,
Yeah,
um, or not. Because he might not have wanted to address it either. You know, it's, if he was trying to sneak it in, it goes to show like he didn't want to address the the real issue, which is like, I know it's Valentine's Day, but these are the reasons why I feel like I really need to do this. I want to make friends. I want to like network in the office, and I see your position and I understand why this might upset, like addressing the actual issue than just trying to like brush it under the rug by being like, oh, it's just Friday night drinks.
right.
Um, yeah.
And maybe she wants to feel like he wants to be home.
Yeah.
That could be another part of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
easier to blame the kind of, like, distant bosses, like, "How could they ask a married father for to" like, you can ask anyone to do
The
anything at
thing.
any point.
Yes.
It's he's the one who maybe I think she's actually more mad at him, but maybe she wouldn't say that.
Right.
It's easier to be mad at hypothetical people.
Yes. Or it does sound like it almost was like neither one of them realized it was Valentine's Day until it was like the evening of Valentine's Day. And then she's like, oh, wait, that wasn't
Right.
cool. It's Valentine's Day. Um, so yeah, yeah, I'll give it a little bit higher because that moment where she's like sitting alone with the kids and realizing like he's probably out for drinks at some bar, like filled with couples celebrating Valentine's Day, and she's there like cutting out heart-shaped construction paper by herself with the kids.
Right.
Um, yeah, I'll give it like a you gave it what did you give it?
I give it a 3.5.
Yeah, I'll give it a 4,
Okay.
4, 4.5. I hear you. This is just good opportunity for some more conversation. So I would look at this as a good thing.
Agreed. Let's do another one. We have a voicemail, and again, guys, if you wanna leave us a voicemail, you can call 646-363-6294. We get so many voicemails, they're all so great. Love hearing the tone in your voice. Let's roll the tape.
Hi, Georgiana and Dr. Naomi. I am a huge fan of the podcast and really appreciate all that you guys do. I have a shared scenario that I would like to share your thoughts on. I just got out of work. I'm doing a new job right now. I'm finishing up training. And I have a new coworker who I have spoken to probably about a handful of times. We're not necessarily super close, but we get along fine. And we were just discussing like kids, and I was saying, well, like, I don't really know if I want kids, and I have a tendency to overshare as well. But I was just like, I don't really know if I'm gonna ever have kids. I go back and forth on it, especially because me and my current partner, we like kind of just go back and forth on it anyway. And then I just kind of like insert in there, but it'll depend on who I marry, right? And I said that because I'm 24, my boyfriend is 23. Neither of us are really focused on marriage at the moment. Like we've definitely like had conversations about the future, but I don't think either of us like are particularly like we don't even live together yet, right? And neither of us are particularly like ready to be seriously thinking about that. But we have like a great healthy relationship. Anyway, this coworker was like immediately after I said, well, it will depend on who I marry. She immediately said, well, then you just answered that question for yourself right now. Like, it sounds like he's not the one. And I just felt like that was like very inappropriate. Like, not, I don't know. I was just like, I did not appreciate that. And it kind of made me feel like she's like making just a quick assumption about my relationship just because I said it'll depend on who I marry, because like I've also like been through a lot of heartbreak, and so like maybe that's just me trying to like not set myself up for heartbreak. But I don't know, like we're both so young and neither of us are really like thinking about that right now. And yeah, like in the long term I would like to marry him, but like I don't know. I didn't like how she said that, and it really triggered me. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks so much. Love you both.
What do you think?
You know what? I love this question because I think a lot of people that are in a long-term relationship, there is this pressure from the outside sometimes, like almost like a shameful thing if like if you're not going to end up with the person that you're with, but
Mhm.
somehow you're like wasting your time, or it's like not okay, or you should cut and run if this isn't someone that you think you're going to be with
Right. Or
for
the
the rest
idea
of
that
your
like
life.
a relationship that doesn't end in marriage is like a waste of time.
Yes. Yeah. And I think people do end up feeling a little bit like they're happy in the relationship. She sounds fine. She sounds content. Um, but yeah, there's this feeling of like you need to figure that out. When like I don't think you need to figure that out. Like if it's
Mhm.
not working for you, you'll know and you'll end it.
Right, or that I think it's also the shame of, like, if she's not outwardly saying that she's obsessed and this is the only person she could ever be with and he's, like, the love of her life, then what are you even doing here?
Yes.
And so first of all, some people don't even get that way about anyone, like, she's talking about her own personality, she's like, I have, like, a little bit of a I'm a realist to an extent where she's like, "I'm
Right.
not trying to just, like, say that we're, like, a lock for forever."
Yes.
And then there can be this shame about like and I feel like that comes maybe societally or from other people projecting that they're only positive things about being in a relationship or being on a marriage track or knowing for sure that someone's the one.
Yes. And I get it. I think people are trying to prevent the pain of a breakup, but like it's going to be painful no matter what. But I do think a lot of times I see this in my practice, in my groups, like in my work, where someone will be dating someone and that person's like not committing, say, to marriage. Whether they're 24, like this woman, which I do think is different if you want to have kids than if you're 44. I think that there is this outside pressure, like other people from the outside like to come in and say, if your partner's not committing, you should leave.
Right.
Where they almost like, especially at this age of 24, she's like, I never said I want like a lifelong commitment from them. And I think it plants, when people come in with that, it like plants that seed. There's already so much societal pressure to be on the right timeline of like, I want to be engaged. I want to be like in the wave of engagements. I want to be like in the wave of weddings. I want to be in that wave of babies. And I do think that there's enough of that already that when people are coming from the outside and like being like, but you might veer off the timeline. Like you might
Right.
not be heading towards this golden horizon of marriage and kids that like she's kinda like, "Back off, like, I don't even know if I want that." Like, why
Right.
you
I
know,
don't
so
even know you that well.
right.
Yeah. It is interesting that marriage or like being, the life partner thing is the only thing in society or in like life where you're expected to have absolutely no doubts, be 100% gung ho, like have blind optimism towards. Like if someone asked her about like if she wanted to be a senior director, and she said, I don't know, like we'll see where I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years. I don't know if I'm going to be at this job in 5 years.
Right.
The person would be like, "Well, then you better just leave now."
Yes.
Like, no one would
Yes.
ever say that. They would say, like, that's a great way to look at it.
Right.
Like, take it, if you're happy now, stay here now. If you're not, like,
Totally. I think there really is like a push against letting your life just unfold because it almost feels like if you're not gripping tight to it and controlling every aspect of your life, that somehow it's going to end up not the way you want it. Like it might end up not the way you want it, whether you grip tight or you let it unfold. And I even think letting it unfold allows you to have a presence as you move through life that's a little bit more like calm, that's going to probably bring in better decision making, and people are going to enjoy being around you more. Like I see all the time these relationships that are fine, and then there's this external like little voice in your ear of like, well, why aren't you moved in together? Like, why aren't you getting married? And
mhm,
then you're like, wait, why aren't we moved in together? Why aren't we getting married? And it's like, I think it's not healthy for
right.
people to feel like
Unless
they
they're the ones who actually wanna get married and wanna move in together.
right. Yes. If that's but this doesn't sound like what this is at all. And yeah, I agree. If that's something where you're worried about your timeline and you're kind of like, okay, we've been dating for 3 years. I want to be married young. That's important to me. I want to have kids young. That's important to me. Great. Then have that conversation and maybe you need to cut your losses. But other people just coming in and saying well, exactly what you said, you need to be sure about the person that you're dating when you're 24 is like your life partner. That's I could see why she's triggered. I'm a little
Yeah,
triggered because I'm like, she's just living her life, letting her life unfold. Like, don't give her something else, this like totally random self-imposed anxiety
right.
that she
It's
doesn't need.
it's probably a projection of this coworker's own experiences or
Yeah.
feelings about what pace you should move on.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, I've seen this so many times where like people are in these relationships that are fine and they're happy, and then someone gets a bug in their ear that they need to be like engaged or moving into it's not even their own thing. It's like they get it from the outside or they see it on social media. And now the relationship is just filled with this like anxious, pressured energy. And it ends up going downhill because of that, like
Right,
external pressure to fit into the right timeline. And now this relationship that was really fun and enjoyable and just loving is now like a means to a destination that you weren't even sure if you necessarily wanted.
right. Which is annoying because she is 24 and her
Yeah.
boyfriend's 23,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. But the age makes it especially annoying. But I even think if someone's like 34 and their boyfriend's 33, like,
right. Again, unless they are feeling like that's what they want. I think that's the main difference in the ages because it's like by 34 or 33, a lot of women are more clear that that is what they want
right,
in the shorter term.
right. And I do think if that is okay, fine, biological clock, right? That's a big factor. But if it's more just about like, I want to secure this person, then that's more like a conversation about just how you're feeling in the relationship. And I think it could be a really nice conversation versus like this thing that's like, you don't love me enough. That's why you don't want to get married. And like this
Right.
quiet little, quiet resentment or pressure of if you loved me enough, you'd want to get married. So yeah, this annoys me for her because she is so young and like I want her to be able to just enjoy the unfolding of this relationship without this unnecessary pressure. So,
Yeah.
and she didn't even ask her the topic wasn't about the relationship.
Marriage, yeah, it was about
It was about
kids.
kids. And all of a sudden she's like, "Well, then he's not your person." It's like, "What? What? Wasn't even we weren't even talking about whether or not he was my person."
Yeah, find a new coworker friend.
Yeah.
This one
I
sounds
give this a
annoying.
6.
I was gonna say a 5, but I'll split the difference with you. I'll give it 5.5.
Is one thing if they were talking about like do they see themselves with their partners long term? But, like, that
Right,
wasn't even the topic. The topic was
right.
about kids, and then all of a sudden, it's like, "Oh, guess this isn't the guy for you." It's like, "Who are you?"
Yeah, shut up, bitch. Okay. Okay, let's alright, well, we did it.
We did it.
Thank you guys for writing in, and let Angry Orchard help you celebrate the sweet release. What better way to toast to that relief than with the crisp, refreshing flavor of Angry Orchard? Made with real fruit, 2 apples in every 12-ounce can or bottle. It's your life. It's the bold beverage that keeps it real. I love Angry Orchard. I feel like it transports me to an orchard in the fall, just that feeling of like crisp, cool, relaxing. Gets, like we talk about, just get into your present moment and feel like you are just relaxing.
Yeah, and I actually like a good cider like that. If you haven't had one in a while, sometimes you forget, and, I think it's just, like, such a tasty way to have a drink, and it is that, like, 2 apples in every bottle that definitely it sounds, like, delicious, and I love Angry Orchard, check it out.
Don't get angry, get Orchard. Learn more and find a hard cider near you at angryorchard.com/locations. Follow Angry Orchard on Instagram at Angry Orchard.
Send us your updates, we wanna know what's going on after the fact.
Yes.
Alright, that's our time.
Great work today.